Play this game with me now. Off there.
Is this turned on or not?
Come across on mine. It said watch live now.
Enough for if there's even volume.
Yeah, the lighting on your sure looks dark though. Hey?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to do that either. Edit? No.
No, that would be in your control.
Cancel that. If there's anybody on there, can you hear the is there any audio?
We got one on my side here now. Who have we got online so far?
Nobody will.
It's funny, eh? Like last time we say we're gonna do all this stuff. And then you're like, it'll probably be exactly the same.
Home.
Who's that, Johnny?
It says Johnny B. I don't know. I'm assuming it'd be nice if they could hear us.
Yeah,
Sort of
that's kind of the whole point of it.
Sort of the idea.
So thus opening up the whiskey.
That is a fancy ice cube.
What do we got here?
This is still, yeah. This one will be a few days in the making for sure.
Yeah, I got a few more live streams out of that one. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. The first one didn't last.
Should we we'll get there. Cheers.
Absolutely. Out and we'll leave them open. So
yeah, who you got? You got a couple on yours. One person liked, but they must have dropped off already on there. So what's the story behind these?
Well, it's
look at that. That is sharp.
I don't think no one can see any of it.
We got to escalate it so that everybody can see these.
So we actually Corey and a friend of hers,
too much glare coming off.
They've been doing sublimation and stuff like that on cups.
You can see.
So the cups that Stan and I have are not that. They are just, I don't know what you call this stuff.
Custom.
But it will come off. These are actually right into the cups. So in the whole theme of shopping local, we got one of Corey's friends to make a few sets of cups for us because we do appreciate people tuning in, watching, sharing the stream. Obviously, if you're watching these live streams, your odds of winning these are going to be pretty good. We're going to give them away in sets. And I don't know how we're going to pick. I guess we'll probably, at the end of the videos, go back and see if anybody commented and participated. And if they did, we'll throw your hat your name in a hat.
Throw your hat in a name.
And then we'll reach out to you. And regardless of whose channel you're watching from, doesn't matter. And then we'll ship you out these cups.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, if you want a chance to win some of these beautifully locally made custom Bloom Enterprises and Kirkville Farm cups, drop us a comment in the comment section.
I think we'll send them out in sets, eh?
Yeah,
I mean, awesome, as well,
yeah,
right? Exactly. So,
thing about the whole what we're trying to do here, it all works off interaction, right?
Absolutely.
The more you guys play along, I guess, the more entertainment we get out of it, right? So
we'll leave them here. So we'll generally people start to file in like half an hour or so, 45 minutes. We should get a few more, and then we'll explain the cups there one more time once we get a few more people in. So
what else is happening this evening?
I was skating.
Is there like a gold medal game going on anywhere? Because it's the Olympics, right?
Oh, I have no idea. That's one thing I just zero interest in. Totally.
Yeah.
So
you're not watching the curling?
Not watching
Jeff
the
curling right now?
I don't watch curling. Don't watch the Olympics.
You know who Jeff Walker is?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I do.
local guy from right here.
You missed one over on your phone.
Did I miss one? Okay, let's have a look. Forgive me if I wibble the screen here. Hey, Robin, your live isn't working. Heck of a plan.
My live
Evening,
isn't
boys.
working. See, I think that what happened is it's not the scheduled live from my phone.
Oh, yeah. So that's the thing. So
And I wonder if
we switched from the app on YouTube to Robin's laptop. We're just trying to, again, keep better track of the comments. And so with the laptop, it shows the comments directly beside the screen. So if you go to Robin's channel, you'll be able to find that live stream. The original link, I think, that was put there is probably a dead link. I could have this figured out by now. Like third time's the charm, maybe 4 times.
Well, I wonder if I put it on my phone and then just use the laptop for. I don't know.
You want to do the old switcher? You have to kill that one and then bring that one back.
Well, this one says one waiting.
You probably got somebody trying to watch it. Yeah. I'm wondering why it's not going.
Just a couple of amateurs here.
Not to mention the fact that we had Wi-Fi in here for the last 2.5 months. Has it been that long? Maybe not that long. It seems that long.
Well, probably.
We had Wi-Fi in here, and that was like the building of the pyramids, technological wise. But and then suddenly at 7:50, we went to hook up the laptops. No Wi-Fi. So, flight of the bumblebee, and we've kind of got it working here. So,
well, hopefully people can navigate to this if they. Yeah, I'm gonna have this all messed up. You got quite a few on there.
Yeah, I got a half a dozen there anyway. So I'm just gonna quickly check the comments here. Mind me. Yeah, no, we're good. We are golden. Dirty old is what, and what's the deal with that? So, was it like a week ago? I think it was a week ago. Anyways, they come up here to the mezzanine, and I'll say I cleaned house. I moved some shit out of the way. Is all I really did, because this table came from up here. Carmen and I, when we bought the farm, we actually built the shop first and then built the mezzanine into the shop. And we lived up here. Actually, where we're at right now, where the table is, this is where our bed was. And we kind of had a bit of a dining room or a living room area over here. Downstairs, right underneath the mezzanine, is our kitchen. And I always kind of intended that this would be somewhat of a rec area, I guess, in terms of, I got the dartboard set up. Charlotte's little dollhouse is over there. Thought it'd be kind of a cool area. And then we did a couple lives down in the bay floor there in the shop, and tried to set some lighting and tried to get sure.
I thought it was all right, but I mean, this is good too. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is much cozier, right? We got the whiskey, we got the leather-bound books, we got some rum, some Grey Goose. I actually brought some. These are pickled carrots from our 2020 garden. These were all the stunted carrots we grew because the ground was as hard as this table. So I had heard anyways that a pickle goes well with whiskey. Do you want to?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No,
right?
A cigar will go well with it, and that'll be that.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to.
I'll not imbibe alone. So.
I don't want to partake in that.
Did you want a cigar?
Yeah, we may as well spark them up too, because they're 2-hour-long ones. You said.
I did actually. So I asked you that. What's going on? And then you said, and then you started off, and I was going on about the Olympics. But what's? I haven't seen you in a couple of days. Like what have you been doing?
What have I been doing? Wheeling and dealing. Been hauling grain. I hauled wheat today. Hauled canola yesterday or the day before. Been making feed. Fixing machinery, just doing all the things that you do when you full-time farm. And Stan, what's Stan been up to? You got a fancy tool that nobody knows what they do.
I've been watching every single available YouTube video on cigar etiquette, cigar manufacturing, cigar lighting, cigar smoking. I feel like I could go pro now. So what would you like? Would you like the same cigar we had last time, or would you like this new one that I
We'll
picked?
try the new one.
Okay, so I picked up some cigars from Sheffield and Sons in Grand Prairie. And I went there as opposed to Cedar Gems, which I'd gone previously, simply because I'm a sucker for a visual, right? And I see the sign and I'm like, Sheffield and Sons, that sounds like something from the old country. And no, that was not anything from the old country. And not to say it was a disaster in customer service, but I thought it was kind of ironic. I went in there and I said to the gentleman behind the counter, I said, I need a lighter. I need a cigar cutter, and I need a couple of cigars. And he opens the humidor, lets me look inside. I pick a couple of cigars. He grabs me this, and he grabs me this, and takes my money and wishes me well. And I thought, man, he sure missed an opportunity to to engage in a little bit of conversation, maybe upsell me on some stuff, educate me perhaps. But I think that's kind of the world we're in, right? So
Yeah.
So I came home and I'm like, well, if nobody else is going to talk to me, because the 20-year-old kid at Cedar Gems really wasn't telling me much either. So I came home to do my own research. So this is a W&D Robusto. So these are made at the Don Tomas Cigar Factory in Honduras.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is what the gangsters had? Like, have we upgraded to that
I
yet?
don't think we're quite at the Al Capones yet, but
when we get there, if we get there.
And so on our community channel, I had asked the question the other day, if anybody knows what this tool is that resembles a miniature ice pick.
The thing about that, though, the picture you took, that looked way bigger. Like I thought it was some rasp for some woodworking.
Yeah,
but that's quite a bit smaller. So
Glenn, one of our regular viewers, had suggested that maybe this was a reaming tool for when you get a flat tire.
That's what I thought too.
Right? And you jam it, but those typically have like a T-bar on it, and you get in there.
You're very familiar with that, eh? From the Kirkfell Farm curse.
The Kirkfell Farm curse is that
flat tire and dead batteries.
Flat tires and dead batteries. And actually, if you go down there right now, the side by side, the front tire is actually getting low, and the old Massey tractor out front of the shop is literally just flat tire. But no, this is so. The last time we had a Romeo and Juliet's Cuban cigar, beautiful cigar. And a couple of amateurs trying to get them down the hatch, and putting an awful lot of draw as we smoked, and to the point where like my cheeks were sucking in and my like blood vessels in my eye were popping out. I'm like, this is more work than it should be. So I started doing some research on cigars and what really causes that. And it turns out that even like an expensive, high quality cigar like that can still have a piece of stem or a twisted leaf or something in there that can affect your draw, or maybe the cigar is over humidified. And so what this is actually a draw tool. And so once you snip your end, right, you snip your end, you test the draw, you light the cigar, and if it's not the draw you want, you can actually insert the draw tool and go down until you adjust the draw to get the amount of airflow that you want.
That is top shelf.
Yeah. And then I also learned, because I have so much time on my hands, that we were lighting cigars all wrong. So the conversation went around, should you use a butane lighter? Should you use a liquid fuel lighter? Should you use a match? Should you use a cedar, basically a piece of cedar? And all of those options are great except for the Zippo, basically. The liquid fuel lighter is apparently what really carries it in. The match, you can use the match as long as you let the sulfur head burn off, and then it's good. But the lighting technique, if we were to just light like a cigarette or something like that, we're going to singe and basically overheat the cigar, and it can potentially burn unevenly, and it can be acidy. And so what we're supposed to do is get the cigar, the foot and the cap, we're going to toast the foot. And so you don't actually touch. I got too much gas pressure here. Don't actually touch the cigar.
This is bonus because I thought this would be
lighter, but
predictable surprises, and now you're learning more about cigars, and you're going to learn about predictable surprises.
Yeah, so you see, I'm not actually going to touch the cigar with the flame. I'm just going to roll it around And it's the radiant heat coming off the tip of the flame that's actually going to heat the edge, the very corners of the cigar. And we're just going to keep rolling it around. You see it starts to wisp a little bit of smoke here.
Also, you notice I had absolutely no trouble with this lighter.
Yeah, no, I'm struggling at life, evidently.
Hopefully somebody that's watching, because this is the third live stream, that you got a cigar and a drink. I know somebody requested a drink, and you know what? If we could ship you what you wanted, Stan and I would more than oblige making drinks for whoever wants to watch. Now you're supposed to heat this up before you cut the end off?
No, I was supposed to do that first, but like I said, it is amateur hours.
Well, then I followed your footsteps, and I'm
like
now I'm not
like
doing
idiot,
it right.
hey?
Where'd you put your?
You need the cutter?
Oh man, that smells good, like real good.
So yeah, so the foot is toasted. We're trying not to touch the tip of the cigar at all. You see it starts to burn a little bit. And then once you get the edge around, then
Well, and then you get right with it.
And then you blow a little bit on the filler. Now then, when you smoke the cigar, you're looking to take a puff every 45 seconds to a minute. So if you go quicker than that, you'll actually potentially overheat the cigar.
I just felt real cool right there when that fire was on the end. Excellent. 45 seconds per toke.
Per toke.
Now I got to set a timer. Well, that was very knowledgeable. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. And you can see actually the corner here where I cut and the wrappers actually started to come off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually indicative that my humidity is too low. It's too dry. Right? So if I want to enjoy this cigar, I'm just going to take a little lick around it. Keep everything in position.
Well, that's what you do now.
That's a bit uncouth, but
I thought you were supposed to do that. See, someone told me once you're supposed to lick the other end before you light it. I don't do that, but I heard that. So,
well, there you go.
Well, that was very knowledgeable. I learned a lot.
So yeah, the cigar is not supposed to be. It's not like a cigarette, right? Like you light a cigarette and the thing will burn. This should be able to go out. And if it goes out, you can. There's a whole process for relighting a cigar that goes out that we were completely doing wrong.
That doesn't surprise me.
So if we get there this evening, then we'll have that discussion too. But I guess you did get this to work, eh?
Oh, I did, yeah.
And it stayed lit.
And yeah, the whole time.
I wonder why.
Well, some days
I'm a propane guy, not really much for butane. So
some days it's all fetch and no pets on the head, right?
I guess, yeah.
So we got a few more. So we're going to rehash this one more time. These cups, Stan and I had these made. A friend of my wife, she actually makes these and does, what the hell is that called again? Sublimation. Anyway, so the cups that Stan and I have, these are just like decals put onto cups that I had in my cupboard. These are actually on there, so you can go in a dishwasher and everything. And what we're going to do with these is after the live stream, Stan and I are going to go back on both our channels. We're going to find out whoever's commenting, who's participating, and then we'll throw your names in a hat and we will send them out in a set. You'll get one Kirkville Farm and you'll get one Bloom Enterprises cup. And then going forward, we got a few sets of these made. Every live stream, we're going to get a set away for a little while, see where this goes. And then, just a little reward because we do appreciate everybody tuning in and we definitely appreciate the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's participation trophies involved in this.
Absolutely.
It's actually a thing.
Yeah. For sure, it is.
You know the other thing I learned? I just noticed you do this. You tap and you ash the cigar. Apparently, that's
a no-no.
That's a no-no. So because this is when a cigar is made, there's actually upwards of 200 people that make a cigar, right? From seed to smoke.
Sorry to all 200 of you.
And so they say if you tap the cigar, it can actually start to affect the inner workings of the cigar, which then can affect your ability to smoke it. So
Decent.
kind of interesting. So if it's the thing, you want to leave the ash on, and if you, for some reason, it starts to become unbalanced and you have to hold it like this to keep it on, you can just gently roll a little bit off for balance. And now if it does go out for whatever reason, we would have to scrape material off. So we could use a tool like this if we wanted to scrape it off and then relight. We don't want to relight the burnt end or the ash or anything like that, because that can get a very acidic and bitter flavor into your cigar, and it can ruin the rest of your smoking experience. But
awesome. All new to me. All new to me.
But yeah, what are we talking about this evening?
So yeah, well, everybody should know the title of this for on both our channels is Predictable Surprises. It was a good idea that Stan had, and within a few days of him messaging me, like, what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about this. My water well quit, and
who'd have thought? Eh?
I was like, you know what, this is there's a lot of stuff. You know, I got 4 or 5 bullet points. Stan's got 7 or 8. So that's just one of them. That would be equipment maintenance, infrastructure maintenance. This should be a predictable surprise on your farm. If you're moving out of town, that's really day one stuff. You're going to have to know how to maintain that infrastructure, how it works. And because a lot of this stuff, and when I did that video, I said, you can phone a plumber. Like you can phone all these people and do all these things. But I'm sure that's another bullet point. If you're spending all this money doing things you should know how to do just to exist, you most likely aren't going to be successful.
Yeah,
there's just no way.
You're just hemorrhaging money that you could possibly keep in your own pocket at that point.
One thing we didn't do before this is prioritize any of this. Like, I got my 5 bullet points, and I don't know if there's actually a start or an end. Is the first one more important than
you got 5? I got 10, but all of this,
I expect my 5 are in your 10.
Yeah, there's going to be crossover, but before I even touch on any of this, or maybe you do, when it comes to predictable surprise, there's 3 things that link all of this together. And there's failure to recognize, right? So there's some threat, some hazard, some impending doom that's coming towards you that you fail to recognize. And therefore, so you don't know what you don't know, essentially, and then it just comes and crushes you. There's failure to rank, so where you recognize that there's something of concern that you need to address, but you maybe don't give it the right priority, right? You don't act upon it quick enough. We see that lots with repairs. Oh, it's something's wearing out, but I can probably squeak another 2 weeks out of it instead of just fixing it right when it's supposed to be fixed. And then there's failure to respond. So you know about it, you've prioritized it, you still don't do anything about it. Ultimately, I mean, that's where you get into kind of the realm of stupidity, right? But I got a problem and this thing's looming and I'm just over here counting butterflies, right? So as we go through this evening, be interested to hear what if we have any commonalities, or if you've experienced any things we're talking about on your journey, either to maintain your farm or to develop your farm. I think we're going to talk to a pretty broad demographic here this evening. We're going to talk to folks that are starting up, folks that are existing, and maybe even a few folks that are in the twilight that are looking to retire, even, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think? What do you think is the biggest concern out of all the things you got there? What do you think? What do you think is going to really eat somebody's lunch?
Well, I was looking through this, and actually, kind of the last one I wrote up just before I got here, I think is probably should be the most important one for off the start, and that's unreal expectations. I actually see it quite a bit with new people moving out to the acreages. They get a few animals, and then they come to me to get feed. There's a lot of people that have that view, that collage of this picturesque farm, right? The picket fence and the barn and everything.
Anybody that's ever watched Charlotte's Web?
Absolutely. Like, the sad reality of that, though, certainly up here in the Peace Country, that probably isn't going to happen on a first generation farm. And I was trying to think, like, well,
no, but not unless you get $1 million.
but is it possible? And I thought, like, if you were doing intense row cropping, growing ginger or whatever, like, maybe you could get out there, get 10 acres of land and turn it cash positive within a few years, and really turn it into something. If you had this niche market, you're located in the right spot, then possible. But most likely it's not going to be the case. You're going to be up here, like for us in the Peace, you're going to try your hand at pigs and chickens and cows and a little bit of agriculture, and it's just, unfortunately, ag itself is a labor of love. And if that is not first and foremost in your mind, yet again, from where I sit, I think you probably won't be successful. So, and I'm like a second, third generation farm, and I watched my dad farm his whole life, right? Yeah. It's a long process, and most likely you're never going to have 2 or 3 homes. You're just going to have one.
That's right.
That's it.
That's exactly right.
So if you have unrealistic expectations going in, that within 2 or 3 years of starting this endeavor, that you're going to have a picturesque postcard to send to all your friends, it's going to be a surprise.
So, I mean,
and that's a predictable surprise from my end.
You run into a lot of people in a day that are maybe new into the venture, and some that are definitely well established. But why do you think that is? Like, what's selling people on that versus establishing community?
I don't know. The almighty dollar is the ultimate drive for most people, even those who don't recognize it. A lot of people that they like the way of life, they've heard the way of life, and then they've seen it, they've heard about it, and when they get out there, I guess it's more work than financially rewarding.
Yeah.
And they didn't realize that. They thought they'd have their cake and eat it too.
Sure.
And it's really not the case. And when you and I were talking about
you can have
passive income, a lot of people like you and I that do the work, we don't mind the work. So it kind of is. But when people move out and they're unsuspecting of what's going to happen, they don't actually want to do the work.
No, don't worry.
Right?
You can have the work and empty pockets too, right?
Well, yeah, exactly, right? So,
and the reason I ask is, I mean, the thing I hear from lots of new farmers or people that are getting established in hobby farming or acreage or thing like that, and it's a very common theme that everyone wants to have a little bit of everything, right? They want to have bees, they want to have dairy cows, chickens, goats, big garden, right? And I mean, might as well throw a llama in there for fun, right? Like, or a donkey or some obscure, an emu, some kind of obscure thing. And when they say, well, like, I don't know where this is going wrong, we're losing money, how do you make my own tap in this thing? I'm a
bad influence.
See, I did that. Hey, and you can see how it changes everything as you tap, right? Mm-hmm. Anyways, my advice is generally the same across the board, is that, okay, well, yes, there's strength in diversity in certain terms, in having multiple crops, so that if one fails, you have something, or the price of barley fails and you can fall back on canola or something like that. There's logic to that, but you can't outgrow yourself into, like, when it comes to establishing your farm, you want to be really good or quite good, at least one, if not very few things before you kind of expand into something else, right? So you want to make sure you're producing consistent results, and then get an established income stream. And I mean, if you're really good at one thing, you're going to be far better than being mediocre at a whole bunch of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where, like, I asked, like, your experience with lots of folks that stop by your place is, why do I need to have bees, a dairy cow, chickens, goats? I get the garden for sure. I get the garden, but all this other stuff, like, why? Like, I know we don't have a combine. We don't have a giant grain bin. I don't have a swat. Why? Because I can go down 5 miles down the road and get it from this guy for cheaper than I can buy all this damn machinery and maintain it and get parts for it and do all that stuff, right? So same with something as simple as honey, right? Why would I go get bees when there's an apiary 2 miles down the road? Yeah, and I can just say, here's, you want some lamb? I can trade you a lamb for 10 pails of honey, or I mean, I could just buy 10 pails of honey for $300 or whatever, right? But I don't need to have everything, because if I have a bad year in my back pocket, chances are all of my ventures are going to have a bad year.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if I have one venture or one or two ventures, it's a lot easier for me to downsize accordingly or do what I need to do and not just have everything fail. Right. And still have something that's salvageable at the end.
What Matt's wondering here, are elevators buying? I only deal with one. Actually, they just built a new one about, I don't know, 20 miles from my place. And with the massive drought that we had this year, the crops were in short supply, and they were actually worried they wouldn't have enough to fill it. So this year specifically, it's the first in about 10 years where you could just phone them. Like I did today. I just phoned them this morning. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of bored. It's -9. It's not too muddy out. Can I haul a couple loads of wheat? I hauled it right in, and for a phenomenal price. Wheat today was $12.30 a bushel.
Whoa.
Last year it was like $6.
Yeah.
So it's
that's like,
yeah, oh yeah, it's a cha-ching moment. It's so are they buying? I don't know if all the other ones are buying or not. I expect they are. A lot of the elevators in our area were they suffered quite a bit from the drought and not being able to get the product.
Yeah. Well, I never knew that I was going to empty that quite that fast, but I think this ice is. I mean, that really held its form. Like it did melt.
It did, and I was wondering if we even poured enough alcohol in there off the start because it's
tough
gone.
to say because you don't know the volume that's.
Like it's 34 minutes in. Normally we just start our drink by now, and here we're done the first.
Just go right to the top.
Yeah, you betcha. So that was on mine of the 5 points I had was the unreal expectations. I think is a very important. For certainly for people that are starting out, as you progress, I don't know. You probably never stop having unreal expectations, but you get better at realizing some things are just dreams and probably not in the cards for you.
Well, yeah, and like the next thing I want to talk about was capital. And so recently on our YouTube channel on the community page, I put a little bit of survey question out there as to what people thought was the most under-realized or underestimated cost in setting up their farm or running their farm, whether it was startup costs. So in terms of what does it cost to buy you the infrastructure, the animals, the machinery, the equipment, all of that stuff, or is it operating costs in terms of what does it cost you to grow a crop, what does it cost you to raise a flock or whatnot, or is it marketing cost, right? And that to me, that's one that we'll probably get into is what does it cost you to actually take your product and make it saleable, right? And get it to market. Even something like if I want to sell a sheep and I want to take it to an auction, that auctioneer's got to take his piece. The truck driver's got to take his piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to advertise the newspaper, somebody on the internet, whatever, they got to have a piece, right? And the feedback from the community was split evenly across the board. So there's definitely within the community, there's folks that they've definitely experienced challenges with their startup costs, things that were more expensive than what they expected. Or maybe they got the goats home and they're like, God damn, these goats eat a lot. and or maybe, when they got the goats, they figured out how they're going to feed them, and that's fantastic. And then now they've got all these goats and they've bred and they've got more goats. And what do we do with all these goats? And how do we get these things to market? And the bottom drops out of that, or they're not established to transport and take to a local butcher. And so that's kind of where inexperience kind of eats your lunch for sure. But I just, I've seen a lot of articles, blog posts on the internet, Instagram posts, vlogs on YouTube, where, we live in a world of extremes, right? And so if you go on the internet, you can find anything that supports your line of thought, right? So if you're like, I want to start a farm for $1,000, you put that in YouTube and there you'll find a video that says you can start a farm for $1,000. And then after you're done watching that video, the next one's going to pop up. You can start a farm for $700. And you're like, oh man, I want to do what that guy's doing. But, these are ridiculously low numbers. And when you think about it from the perspective, what does it even cost you to rent a stand at the local farmer's market? Well, there's your $500 right there, okay. Right? Before you even brought a product to the market and you're just trying to get yourself table space in the market, there's a cost to that, right? So having capital is something that you need to understand. Not just what does it cost me to get it. It's what does it cost me to get it? What does it cost me to keep it? And what does it cost me to get rid of it? And then, I guess the downstream of that is once you get it, is to avoid the allure of shiny paint, right? Like if you're just starting out, we have outside, you can't see it from here, but outside we have somewhere in the 1970s Massey Ferguson 40 industrial tractor that I bought for $3,300. It works fantastic, right? Takes a little bit of labor, takes a bit of work. I usually got to swear at it.
You missed that there, but you got even a whole new subscriber popped up there. So if you're a new subscriber to Kirk's channel or Kirkfell Farm,
and
you're watching, right? Welcome.
Well, I mean, that alone probably gets you 2 dips in the draw. Hey?
Probably, yeah. Whoever it was.
Holy man, I did not put any magic water.
You got enough in the ice here
in the whiskey there. So for the folks that, okay. So I just put a drop of water in the whiskey. I know there's some diehards out there that are probably going to jump in comment section, kick the hell out of me for that one. But this is a trick from back home in the old country where you just put a couple drops. You're not trying to dilute the whiskey. What you're trying to do is unlock a lot of the flavor profile in the whiskey that otherwise would be lost in the fire, essentially. So that's why I do that. But yeah, so fancy new tractor, fancy new seeder, whatever it is, got all the buttons, got air conditioning, it's got a cab, you're living the dream, right? But I mean, if you're not established financially, you don't have the market or the land base to support it, you're probably going to have to use some older stuff. And if it's maintained properly, like our tractor, I'm not a mechanic, right? So that thing, in terms of how simple it is to fix, is really, really simple, right? Whereas the bigger tractor, that's my father-in-law's, is getting a little bit more complex. And that one, I mean, I can take it out and I can pressure wash it because I can't fix the tractor. I can only give it confidence, right? So
I told one guy here his truck wouldn't start on one of his videos. I said, just rip the Dodge emblem off and put a Ford one on there, and that'll probably get her going.
Was that old BP?
It was, yeah. So I had to laugh.
He was stuck in a snowbank the other day, I seen.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to laugh. You do that with your tractor too. If you can't get it running one day, you just get a John Deere sticker, slap it on there, and it'll probably work.
There you go. What else you got on your list?
Well, I was kind of like when you said lots of the stuff crosses over. So I had one that I thought was sort of important, and it goes back to the the labor love thing. So like there's all too often people get discouraged with what they don't have and what's not going right. And I do see that actually quite a bit in people that come to get feed. They're like, because for those of you who don't know, my dad's 70 years old. Him and my mom have been building that farm their whole entire lives. So that had nothing to do with me. All I was born. But lots of people look and they're like, well, if I only had that tractor or that backhoe or that whatever.
Old and paid for. That's right. Yeah.
Then things would go better. And that's not always the case, right? More wheels, more equipment, they go flat. More batteries go dead. Not to mention, on our farm, one of the things my dad always told me is you need what you need to get the job done. Anything else is a luxury. That's all you need. So, if you have a 4-wheel drive tractor, you better make sure that you have enough land to justify it, right? But lots of people, they'll try to emulate across the fence, and it doesn't matter if they're a first generation homesteader with 10 acres and they look across the fence at a 7th generation 10,000 acre farm. They're like, and you cannot rush to get that, right? I mean, the shiny paint thing, it's just, things aren't fair, right? Life isn't fair. So if that's what you think you need, unfortunately, it's going to be at least 7 generations to get there.
That's the thing. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but we have no idea how much shit it took to get it that green, right? So.
Yeah. So that's another one that I had. That's my second bullet point, is the whole keeping up with the Joneses thing, or trying to.
So this is going out. So I'm going to use the pick here just to shake the ash off a little bit, and I'm going to dig out the burnt section here because I don't want to relight ash, the burnt material, right? That wouldn't taste good.
No. While Stan does that, I'm going to say again, make sure you guys, if there's any new people watching in, leave some comments. Get involved in the discussion. Stan's following on his. They are popping up tonight. That's the first night they did. And I got them on this computer as well. And also when Stan reaches out to touch his phone, he brings up the old ones. So we're trying to get them. We're trying to get to them as much as we can. But
I'm not trying to get all touchy-feely with anybody, but if I do that, I can see.
So you missed that blue one.
Yeah, wheat prices are great. How high do you think they'll go? That's interesting.
Wheat prices.
How high will they go?
I don't know. I thought 13 was a high. I read somewhere if Russia and Ukraine go to war, then look out, wheat prices will skyrocket because that's a massive wheat producing sector of the world. Although I don't. It's snowing there right now, so they're not producing wheat.
Ukraine was all the potatoes. Are they wheat too?
Oh, I think so. That whole, what's that called? Like the Eastern Bloc or whatever. That's a big wheat producing. Russia, Ukraine, the former Soviet countries produce a tremendous amount of wheat. I think that's like the bread basket.
That makes sense. That's
of the world.
Reasonable to fight over it then.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. What's another one I had? This is more of a light one, which I thought. So this is going to end up shocking most people, and this goes to if you're starting out now, and I shouldn't even say starting out. Like I have like a 1970 430 case I use every day on my roller mill.
Yeah,
I don't need a new 70 horsepower or 50 horsepower John Deere tractor to do that, right? About 2 weeks ago, which is another thing that was, it's great about YouTube and stuff. When I did that video, people explained to me how to fix it right away because I'm not a mechanic either. I'm mechanically inclined.
That community piece, right?
Right. So yeah, right away. Oh, points and this and that. So, anyways, I fixed it. But if you don't know how to fix things at all, so you don't need to be a journeyman mechanic, but you need to be able to get by. You should have. And I wrote in here if your toolbox is a fishing tackle box with a roll of hockey tape in there and some multi-tool you got for spending more than $50 at PV Mart, unfortunately, I think you're going to have a long road because it's not the fact that you can't get someone to help you fix the things. You're going to have to be able to get the stuff up and running when you need it, right? Agriculture as a whole is a time-sensitive thing. When you're lambing, you don't have like next week, right? You have the night of
right now,
right? When you're doing things, when you're combining, oftentimes up here in the piece, you just don't have forever. The snow's coming, the rain's coming, whatever, right?
Yeah,
so
you get in the combine and you go till you're done.
Even if you're not a journeyman mechanic, you're going to fix it properly. You have to be able to get it going to get the job done until you can get it fixed. And I think it was in this one. I think that it should be a requirement, almost like in the gold mining days when they stopped them and they said, you got to prove you have enough money and supplies to get to the Klondike, right? You've heard that story.
Yeah.
I think when you go into the bank and you look for your first mortgage, there you should have to pass a test, like can you fix this stuff? And if you can't,
like a skill testing
just a little bit, they don't. You shouldn't have to reconstruct the space shuttle for sure, but you should be able to fix a little bit. You feel the yields will return to pre-drought highs sooner than later. Do I feel it's going to be all in the? I do. I really do. So on our farm specifically, we had the highest yielding canola we've ever had this year. Our barley yielded slightly below average. Our wheat slightly below average, but probably on par. What separated the wheat was the fact it was number one wheat. My dad is 69 years old. In his life, has never combined number one wheat and never combined wheat in August. And this year, he combined number one wheat on August 17th.
Good for one.
Yeah, it was wild. It was a whole thing. So looks like a lot of what's left in the snow now. I'm pretty sure it's just water. Like the ditches were boiling yesterday and the day before.
Yeah, they were running hard.
So up here, I'm not sure, Matt. Are you from up here? Because I think in our area for sure, if we get some timely rains here early in the spring and throughout the summer, I think there's enough there. A lot of guys are saying because the drought was so harsh, the fertilizer uptake wasn't there, right? So the ground is.
Yeah.
We did some soil samples and we were fairly deficient in nitrogen and things like that. So we're gonna have to sock the groceries to it to get there, but we're also going to grow a lot of peas, which you don't put nitrogen
That's
down.
right. Yeah, because that's a nitrogen fixer,
'cause
right? So
nitrogen's hovering right around that $2,300 a ton instead of 900.
yeah. So peas might be the cash crop.
It's going to be
like a 2-for-1 cash crop. It's going to help you reduce your fertilizer costs and then also be
absolutely
a good income as well.
About 5 years ago, I'm sure planning will be in one of these too, but so on our farm, about 5 years ago, this similar thing happened. Fertilizer was quite high, and it wasn't really that it was so high per ton. It was that threat of can't get it. Like we even considered just firing up our super bees and going down to Westlock and getting a load because we're just getting threatened all the time. You can't get it. So that year we said, you know what? If we run out, we're just going to switch the drill over and we'll seed peas until the local supplier gets fertilizer. We seeded a lot of peas that year. Turned out very well, but even the ones that we worked into the ground, because we had our own pea seed, all we lost was the value, and that was about $10 a bushel. So basically $30 an acre is all we lost, and that was the best summer fall we ever had. We just worked it back into the ground and called her good. And our plan at this point is to do that again. We have our pre-fall worked and anhydrous applied ground. We got some pre-sprayed ground to put certain cereals, certain canolas on, and then everything else we'll just go back up to 50% peas again. If we get them, we get them, and if we don't, it's a one heck of a summer follow crop.
There you go. If you talk about planning, and I'm going to get into planning here right away, but you just made a off-the-cuff comment about a multi-tool. This is my Leatherman. I got this Leatherman as a safety award for Concord Well Servicing back in like 2006. I lost it 4 years ago. I just found it the other day, sitting in the bottom of a duffel bag. And while I was up here cleaning up, I also found this old photograph. This is my dad when he was a wee lad back in the old country.
Everybody had a portrait, eh?
Yeah, you went and had your photograph made. You didn't. It wasn't like now where everybody's got a camera in their pocket. This was an event, right? But so when my dad passed away, I went to England and I tried to sort out all his things, and I come across this photograph. And it was in a broken frame. This is the frame it was in. I recently just put everything back together, and so there's a piece of something in the back here that I just want to pull apart and share with everybody because I think it's very relevant to what we're discussing here this evening. It's a piece of cedar they actually put in the back of the picture frame.
Everything was better quality, eh?
Yeah. And then I'm sure this cardboard is the same cardboard they used to insulate houses with in the UK. But between that cardboard and the actual photograph is a piece of newspaper.
What does it say on there?
This is the Penrith Observer from Tuesday, April 26th, 1955. My dad was born in 1949, so he would have been 6 years old when this photograph was taken. And I thought this was a wonderful newspaper clipping because inside the newspaper clipping, it actually not only talks about a gentleman named Donald Campbell and his bluebird. If you watch any of our videos, you'll know everything here on the farm is heron blue. And there's a reason that was chosen. It was chosen because of Donald Campbell's bluebird, the K7, which actually broke the water speed record on the lakes in the Lake District in the UK. And so that was kind of a cool piece of history that linked our farm back to the UK, back to my old man. But on the outside back cover on the Penrith Observer, because Penrith is an agricultural community and largely governed by sheep farmers. And there's this beautiful article in here on the issue of farm workers' wages and how the cost of everything in the 1950s was going up and up and up and up. And they wondered how they could make this sustainable and where it was going to end. I thought that was kind of interesting because we find ourselves having those same discussions today.
And that was in the photo, or you put that in?
That was in the photograph. And so
wow,
when I picked it up, the frame is broken, and I pick up the pieces, and that piece of newspaper was there, you know. And if we just read a little excerpt from it, I thought it would be kind of neat actually. For what let's get to this side, right? Every year, or whenever an increase comes, the farmer pronounces his immediate bankruptcy, and the National Union of Agricultural Workers expresses its profound dissatisfaction with the award. The matter is then more or less forgotten, and we all go blithely on our way. Wages are absolutely fundamental to the relationship between master and man, and it is on the team that it all depends. It is therefore surprising and alarming that the average person on both sides has no idea at all of the issues involved. These go far deeper than mere money. It's amazing to think that that piece of wisdom comes from 1955, and here we're still talking about these same issues in our society today. So let's tuck this away, put the old boy to bed here. Kind of interesting, hey?
That is. But yeah, that's cool that was in there.
Yeah.
I guess you can. Very cool find. Yeah, absolutely. That's a new one too. That green one just popped up on yours.
Put that there.
Well, there's some new people. So yeah, we got. We don't know who comes and goes. So I'm going to say it again. We do have these cups. We're going to give away. We're going to go back. We're going to look at all the comments for those who are commenting and participating. We're going to enter you guys' names in a draw, and then we'll reach out to that person. Either channel, doesn't matter, mine or Stan's, and then we're going to send you a set of cups.
Winner, chicken dinner.
If you've stuck around and heard that 3 or 4 times now, I apologize, but like I say, it doesn't tell us who's coming and going. It just shows the number and it goes up and down. So
yeah. Anyways, aside from our short intermission there, we were talking about having a plan, right? So having no business plan is a predictable surprise in terms of, are you going to succeed or are you going to fail? If you don't have a plan, or if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail essentially. So before you start any business, right, you got to know what that business looks like on paper, how much it costs to start, what the market looks like, how much it's going to earn year after year, so on and so forth. And if you have a plan, it's going to, greatly increase your chances of success. But I mean, if you have a lack of,
why don't we get TikTok?
Why don't we get TikTok? Who asked that? I don't know the TikTok. I get that question all the time. You should be on the TikTok, and you'll corner the market, is what they tell me. Because I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I have YouTube, but I've never got on with the TikTok.
I don't even have Instagram.
I don't live my life 15 seconds at a time. Like I just don't.
I don't even understand the platform of it. Is that what it is?
If folks at home could explain to us.
I don't get it. I know what it is. I'm not an idiot. I'm not a mute, but I don't. And some people send me TikToks to watch, but I don't. Yeah. I don't understand the process.
If you could tell us the wisdom in that venture, and what we could possibly share with the world through TikTok.
Well, is it a 15-second? I've heard that a couple times.
That's what I thought. I thought it was just a 15-second clip. It kind of
because that's YouTube Shorts or like 15
Shorts,
seconds. We do a few of those, and nobody watches mine. I had when I was unloading wheat one time. I had like 1,400 views on that, and then I did one today, and I had like 13 people looked at it. So
it's fickle, hey, the internet.
Unless the TikTok is definitely the way to go. But like you say, we don't live our lives 15 seconds at a time, and really don't. Like the first live we did, we agreed it was going to be an hour. It was 2 hours, 20 minutes later, I think, right? And the second one, we just thought, let's just roll with.
It's
the new thing. It's 3 minutes. Oh, it's 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Well, for long-winded guys like Stan and I, we're rolling around just going to crest an hour here, and I don't even feel like we're halfway done.
We're not even halfway through our
right?
cigar.
So to me, 3 minutes isn't going to be it's the new thing.
It's the new thing. Yeah, no, there's certain things in life that I can do in 3 minutes, and this isn't one of them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I mean, maybe it's a thing. Maybe it's not a thing. I don't know. Maybe a guy could just drop tips. Hey, just the tip. Maybe that could be a regular thing.
A daily chuckle is why I watch them.
Why I watch them. Yeah, no, that's right. Do you guys hear that background noise in there? That's our heater. Should I shut that off? Is that going to be a...
Can anybody hear that? I think it has to be closer. Jesus.
Hey, Glenn. Good evening. Glad to see you made it in.
Then Glenn doesn't know about the cups.
Glenn, you better tell Glenn about the cups while I go shut that heater off, because I think that background noise is going to be too much for some folks.
It took you 4 minutes just to light the cigars. Yeah, absolutely, it did, for sure. And Stan and I do that. We get off with, so Glenn, you're here. Great. As Stan said before, Glenn is a good supporter of actually both of our channels. So Glenn, what we got here, my wife's friend and my wife made these glasses. They got the sublimation, it's called, to make these. So this is a Kirkfell Farm glass. This is a Bloom Enterprises glass. We got these made up. We're going to, we're going to give these away. We got, I don't know what we got. We got, I think 6 sets made or something. So we're going to try it out. Tonight is the first night. We're going to, the heater noise isn't that bad. Okay. Anyways, the heater's off, Stan's back. Back to Glenn. We're going to give these away. We're going to, at the end of our live streams, we're going to go back through the comments and we're going to see who was participating. And then we're going to take all those names. We're going to throw them in a hat. We're going to pick one out and then we'll reach out to you on either channel. Doesn't matter. Sublimation, if that's what you call it. Ours are just decals on here. So these will fall off. But
they're hand washed.
So that's why I leave them here.
So I can do your dirty dishes.
Stan can do the dishes all the time. But yeah, anyways, that's how that's going to go. And then, so we were business planning. I had one here too, not knowing the numbers, make a spreadsheet. I think that goes right in with this. And that is, we're getting into more stuff. I think that's a predictable surprise, but it's probably one that's going to sink you. The rest might be a hurdle, not knowing how to fix things.
Like an obstacle.
Even unreal expectations. Once you realize it's probably going to happen, you can probably get over it or not, whatever. Not knowing the numbers though, I think that's going to be one that's going to sink a lot of new people to ag, new people to farm direct selling and buying, things like that. If you don't know what this is costing you to raise, if you don't know what your expenses are to exist with your farm, it's going to be rough. And I got to say, we started selling molasses this year. So now we're talking to a lot of commercial cattle guys. And I did not know that it does not matter if they've been in the business for 10 years or 60 years. They don't know the numbers. They don't know the cost per head per day that
it's whiskey. It's already sanitized. That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know if that comes from a place of, because most of these guys come from their second generation. So they've either bought the herd from their parents or inherited the herd, and it comes from that whole, well, this is what we've always done. We got 100, 200 head of cows. We put out 12 bales a day. We put out 7 bales a day. We put out 2 bags of mineral. And that's just what we've always done.
Historical ignorance, essentially.
So then you come into a year like we had, no hay, no feed, no nothing, and it's just like, and I've had this round and round, and I don't have cattle. I've had 11 cows my whole life. I don't know nothing about them. So we sit down with these guys right away. Well, this molasses is expensive. It's going to work. And I said, well, what's your daily numbers? I don't know. Well, how are you going to move on? Like, where do you go from there? Like, I don't know.
Well,
it's 30, 31 cents. And I don't know. Is it too much?
I can't speak to the crowd that's established. You probably run across more of those folks than I do, but I run across lots of folks that are getting into farming. And I could say with certainty, if you buy a farm without understanding what your costs are going to be, don't lose your real estate agent's number, because you'd be phoning them back in 5 years, if not less.
Yeah, right. I guess it's however much rope the bank lends you at that time, right? Well, that'll be how far you go. And when the great reaping comes.
Yeah. The other thing I got is getting too big too fast. And that kind of ties into that. I got to have goats. I got to have chickens. I need a llama just for fun, right? So if you buy a farm, like you say, that if I was to look at you and I go, no, right? And so you've expanded infrastructure as your demand increased.
But, and we never even caught up to that. In that transition from getting bigger and just put it on the ground and put it under tarps, put power poles down, because we didn't have the bins. to go along with the land and the good yields in the years. And we thought, it will be a reactionary thing. If we get the crop, we'll build the bins, as opposed to build the bins and get the crop. You are getting a ton. We should have switched this. You should have got the computer.
Glenn just said he had a.
Nobody's commenting on
Glenn had a cattle guy that is feeding molasses. So far, is working out, and then we kings sit back and wait for the oil and gas wells. Well, that's a thing, right? I can't speak to the entire province of Alberta, but I know here in the Peace Country, there's some oil boys in Calgary that have cracked out their checkbooks, right? There's a lot of development up here, and that's definitely. We talked about this during our passive income session. That is probably the most passive income you'll ever get.
Absolutely, especially on inherited land.
Yeah, 100%.
So we know
it pays a tax bill, right?
Well, we know of several people that are distant landowners. Like they don't even live in the province, so they've inherited land that they never even lived on.
Yeah,
that generate well over $20,000 annually.
Yeah,
that is the most. So that and the appreciation of the land value itself, I don't think there's more passive income that exists in the world.
Probably not.
When you've never even lived on it. Like you have your grandma left it to your mom who lived on it for half her life. Then she moved into the city, had you, and you don't even live in the same province anymore. And you get, rent from the farmer, 30,000 from the oil company, and 2,000 a year, 5,000 a year, 50,000 a year, whatever that case.
Man, I'd be sitting by the mailbox every day just waiting for the guy to come.
It's amazing, and some of these facilities are that incredible. I was looking at an aerial map the other day, and I don't know why I was way up north, but and I started to you bring out the aerial map and you can clearly see the outline of the quarter, and there's like 6 wells on some of those quarters.
Yeah,
$3,000 a well or something. Whew.
That's some pretty good revenue, right?
That's and then like I say, if you didn't have to pick no rocks, build no fence, pick no roots, if you just got that, I mean, nothing against you, it's great, but that is the definition of passive income.
If you got no labor investment into your land, well, I mean, that's you didn't have to break, you didn't have to do anything, right? So that's a win-win, right? But yeah, getting too big too fast. So that's the thing. Like, you don't want to get too big for your boots in terms, or outgrow let your ambitions outgrow your farm's capacity to match it, right? So you want to just cut the end right off of that.
Is that what you're supposed to do now?
Well, no, I tried it. It didn't work that great, so I just ended up just
snipping that. Well, you bought this.
I made that.
Oh, you made this?
I custom made that. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Where'd you get the handle?
Well, I just had a piece of old screwdriver that was busted, and then
decent.
This is a 4.5 inch.
Well, I'm going to use it then.
And then I filed it all down. So, yeah. Yeah, you got to custom make stuff.
That is hilarious.
Anyways,
it's a fine work.
As your farm expands, as your market, your customer base expands, then you scale up, right? This isn't the field of dreams, right? It's not Kevin Costner. If you build it, they're going to come. That's not the case, right? You get too big too fast, and you outgrow your ability to get things to market. You're going to end up 1-800 real estate agent. Right?
What is this? NFE. With this year's feed situation, what would your strategy to not lose your lunch on feed costs? I suppose it depends on what you're feeding.
Depends on the scale of your farm.
Yeah. Access to feed. So there is feed out there, and unfortunately, I just pinched my finger. Drought is fairly predictable.
Well, you can plan for, and if you're in the Alberta Peace Country, you can plan for drought or flooding, one or the other. We're gonna get one or the other, right? The optimum year for growing, generally one portion of the growing season will look like you're gonna hit it big, but the rest of the year maybe not as much. So there's a lot out there in terms of alternate feed sources. I mean, this year we've seen a lot of demand for pea straw, for wheat straw, barley, oat straw. And then top that with molasses,
you got big into that this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's alternate feed sources for. You're welcome. Well, I mean, if it weren't for molasses for us, I mean, that would have a greater impact on our sheep flock than just the feed value. I mean, it's the nutritional value that we really go for. It's intended to be a supplement, not necessarily an alternate feed source. But
It is +2 here though from Vancouver Island. I don't know. It's +2. Well, you just wrote that.
+2. Yeah. No,
Beautiful.
I think we were +1 here. We're closer to, I think, +6 actually during the midday today. So yeah, so we had a beautiful day. But yeah, I mean, if you're feeding ruminants, what you need to understand is that when a cow digests food, they're not digesting hay and converting it to feed. And that's the case with any ruminant. But what's actually happening is the bacteria in their stomach is digesting that dry matter feed, and it's the destruction of the enzymes and the bacteria inside the cow's stomach that actually generates the energy for them to live off. And so, if you can inject, sugars, carbohydrates, and fibers in a palatable format, you're going to succeed, right? But you just got to make sure that your energy levels are good, your protein levels are good, and your fiber levels are good. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to get some pretty skinny cows, right?
So NFE, he said he was feeding cattle, or she. I'm sorry if I. So yeah, when with the cattle, with the ruminants, the molasses this year we found, that's why we brought it in. We did some research and we found if you were to start the molasses program early enough before you ran out of hay, that was the thing, before you ran out of straw, you had to start this early enough. There's a couple things that molasses are going to give you. One is basically a 20% stretch in your hay pile.
Yeah.
So, and that's just based on the principle of healthier going into a bad situation. You will last through that situation longer. So the molasses gives them all the vitamin, all the mineral. And Stan uses the sheep molasses for his lambs, and very similar to the cattle stuff. So if you were to start the molasses early enough before you ran out of hay, you can reduce your grain that you're feeding. You can cut the loose mineral out altogether. Your salt consumption goes down by basically 75%. So those are your cost savings right there, and you're stretching your hay reserves up to 20%. And that, fortunately for our area this year, was enough for a lot of guys. I know I'd say 7 or 8 guys have told me in the last 2 weeks that this really did work. I had a guy
100%
say that last night he just picked up a bunch of bags of grain and 2 more totes of molasses, and he said it was unbelievable. He actually thought upwards of 40% hay reduction. Lots of guys are saying when they take the chore tractor out, the cows don't rush the fence, they don't rush the gate, they don't rush the tractor. They're feeding them less. They're feeding them less quality forages. So instead of good hay, they're feeding straw. They're feeding pea straw, all sorts of things, even just slough grass. But the animals are conditioned enough. And none of this is ideal. This is not ideal, right? But it was the option, the most affordable option. So that's basically this year in our area was the only way to salvage anything financially. If you didn't get on that train, you were looking at higher than normal culling or diving into savings to try to afford some of this. I don't know what you want to call it, if it's price gouging or opportunistic or whatever. I seen like $288 a bale the other day. It was like $355 a ton, and I just like
the highest I saw was $375.
That's a lot. You know, is it required? Is it necessary?
I mean, the price has to move. I mean, that's fair to say that. I mean, supply and demand, and whether it's fair or it's not fair. I mean, if you owned, 5 quarters of land and your average bale, you're getting so many bales per acre off of it, 6 bales an acre, and then you come out last year and you get maybe a quarter of a bale an acre. Your tractor burns the same amount of diesel. Your baler still requires the same amount of grease on the chains, all that stuff, right? So,
well, I was thinking too, maybe a bit of it was a little bit of opportunistic, but the hay guys, they fertilize too, right? They broadcast in the summer and stuff, and fertilizer has skyrocketed, so they're gonna have their costs too. I'm not in the hay selling business, so I don't know how much is too much and how much is just being ignorant, but maybe that is what's needed. I don't know.
So we had a guy ask. He says, "Do we think we're going to get a drought this summer?" So
they were predicting it.
I'm a bit of a weatherman, right? So I pride myself in that. What do I think we're going to see? So right now, where we saw an exceptional volume of snowpack in a very short period of time, which is then rapidly rapidly melting, followed by an exception bottom snowfall, which then rapidly melted. And so I think we're going to see good subsoil moisture, and that'll probably help. If we can get guys seeding in the field, it'll probably help that crop establish itself and get it up and out of the ground in good fashion. But when you get into late June and July, if that moisture's not there, I mean, better than anybody what's going to happen there, right? It's just going to it's going to burn and die. And so, what's going to happen June, July, August? I mean, I can't predict that far out, but the almanac says, yeah, hold on to your boots, because she's going to be hot and dry again, probably, or definitely some unfavorable weather, right? So, which, I mean, that should be kind of par for the course given the nature of the business we're in, but it's never nice to see your year's wages wash away down the field, right?
No, and up here specifically, because you got the same soil we do. It does not hold the moisture. I mean, you can go places where you got lots of topsoil or lots of black dirt, and you can do a rain every week. We know here, if it's hot throughout the summer, you can use 2-3 tents an evening, and you won't get your feet wet.
Yeah, there's a different type of clay here that I mean, it'll grab the moisture and hold the moisture, but it locks it in such a way that it's not accessible to a lot of the plants. And we'll get a half an inch of rain, and 20 minutes after it's done, I could walk across that yard and not get mud on my boots.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy the way it just pulls it away. And then a heavy layer of sandstone underneath, right? So really good for replenishing aquifers, but not that great for keeping your
I guess that's why Hythe could be the town of flowing wells. It's there. Jeremy's in. You missed a few from Glenn. I was trying to keep up to Glenn's.
So
Jeremy's a guy that uses molasses. He can shed some light on his experiences if there's not another guy watching on my channel.
Cost of straw was getting expensive compared.
Jeremy, how you doing?
It was the heat bubble that hurt. Yeah, the heat bubble did hurt for sure. 40, what do we see here? I think we were 47 degrees.
Oh boy,
was the number here for multiple days sustained, and we seeded grass in the fall and watched it pop up out of the ground and then just wither away to dust. Right?
Yeah.
The mayweed did all right.
Well, and that's we've joked about that on our farm a lot. If these guys, if they want to do their GMO and their cross breeding and splicing and everything, they just grab a few Canada thistle plants, because those are like 7 feet tall.
Very prolific.
They cannot get snowed under. They can't get hailed out.
Yeah.
They can survive in the hottest drought and the coldest frost. Nothing will get that.
Yeah.
But yet we are.
There's a way to make that palatable.
Right, that wild
a little
oats,
less potent.
any of that stuff, weeds, unbelievable.
Yeah. So what else do we got?
I don't know where we were at when we segued off of that. Knowing the numbers, that's where we were at. Knowing the numbers.
Knowing the numbers. Okay, so we know the numbers to get into farming, right, and get established, and get our product to where it's a saleable product, but. Now I'm getting into having a focus on marketing. So being able to sell your crop. So with farming, as with many other enterprises, you have a triangle, right? So you got the expense side, your daily purchases, your operational side, which is growing the crop, raising the animals, and your marketing side, which is selling the product. And so this is why I asked that question on our YouTube community page to see, what is it that the public has an understanding of, or the community has an understanding of? And is it the case that we really don't know which of these three? Or is it the case that each of those three affects different folks in different ways, right? But I'd say there's a lot of folks that seem to think, especially those that are getting into it, there's that stereotypical, if I just put in labor, I'm gonna succeed, right? Early to bed, early to rise. I get out there and I pick weeds. I'm just bound to have money just fall into my pocket, right? So that operational part, the work, the labor, that's not going to go away, right? That's just a given, right? The expenses, what does it cost you to buy land? Well, that's fairly standard based on where you're at. What does it cost you to buy fertilizer? Fairly standard. What does it cost you to buy feed? fairly standard. But when it comes to making money and how you exploit the community that you're the community that you're selling to, the commodity market that you're selling to, your ability to negotiate that price and sell your product and tell your story is going to directly affect what falls into your pocket at the end of it, right? We see this lots, we talk about hobby farms with eggs. We see that lots, right? What's a fair price for a dozen eggs?
Yeah, that's $4, $5.
$4, $5. What does it cost you to raise a dozen eggs?
Yeah, well,
$4, $5. Why would we charge $4 or $5?
Yeah,
right?
well, I wouldn't even be happy with saying that because it's a lot. Just even just washing them to me is worth more than $4 a dozen.
And it is, right? And so when you actually count your labor cost into it, and what are we really marketing apples to apples, or are we just being apologetic to the crowd that can go to the grocery store and get eggs for $2.50 from a chicken that lived in a cage? And the same thing is true when we get into the meat market, right? Direct to consumer meat sales. You've done videos on this where you get your whole animal butchered for, what was it, $6 a pound or something like that, versus
absolutely.
Versus if you go to the grocery store and you buy that piecemeal, right? Sure, you can get hamburger at the grocery store for $5 a pound, and so that seems like maybe the farmer's gouging, but you're also getting the tenderloin, you're also getting all these premium cuts, the sirloin, all this stuff.
You're $30 plus a cut.
$6 a pound, and so you have to appreciate that when you're trying to sell to a community that maybe doesn't understand the math necessarily. There's a little bit of work required in marketing your product outside of just putting it in a styrofoam tray and hoping somebody shows up at the farm to buy it. What are you getting there?
I'm gonna get some more of this.
I'm really impressed with this ice.
I am too.
Thank you. The other one I got is, and this just, it's by no means in order of precedence, but the lifestyle. So the road to poverty is paved with dreams that never got off the ground, right? And you are dreaming if you think that having a lifestyle is sufficient to feed your kids, right? If it's going to make your car payments, if it's going to make your mortgage payments, lifestyle doesn't feed your kids, doesn't make your payments. You might actually, in many cases, need to keep your day job, or if you don't have a day job, get one, right? There's a few cases where, you're a really good example where you're able to be a successful businessman at your venture, and you've got the land base, you've got the infrastructure, you've got the multi-generational farm to be able to back that up. But for lots of folks that are moving out of the city and they want that white picket fence, they want 3 chickens, a goat, a donkey and an emu, chances are they're going to need to have some off-farm income to sustain that, either until it's established, or in many cases, even just to keep up with the operating costs of that venture, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So my dad, for sure, I don't remember exactly what year or how old he was when he retired, but I was thinking just the other day, that man was, 300 days away from home a year for his whole entire life. Like for my whole life, I was already graduated before he retired. And, like you say, he did acquire a lot of land, but that was not, he always wanted to farm, but like you say, it wasn't just I'm going to farm and, here I go. There was a tremendous sacrifice.
Yeah, tremendous
behind
sacrifice,
that.
right? And so I hear lots of folks, in that conversation, definitely in the online community, saying, okay, well, we bought a homestead, we've built our house, we've got our ducks and our geese, and now we're looking at how can we turn this into our regular source of income, right? How can I convert labor into money. And I'll tell you, that's a magic trick if ever there was one. And you, sorry to disappoint the folks at home, but magic isn't real, right? So there's a very naive assumption out there that you can just take time and time equals money, and that exists within. It's a premise called proletariatism. So if you've ever read 1984, ever read that book?
No.
Oh, okay. It's a pretty good book, right? Anyway, so there's a social class of wage workers. They're called the proletariats. And it's basically, that's the only thing they have to contribute to society is their labor. And so if we're coming off of wage income and we're trying to convert wage income into a tangible asset, and then we want to turn that tangible asset back into income, there's a lot more to that equation, right? There's a lot more in the entrepreneurial world than just time, right? You can't just put 10 hours in and feeding your chickens and think that you're going to get a golden goose the next day. It doesn't work like that, right? So if you're a stay-at-home Instagram farmer, if you have an online blog, there's a really good chance you're going to become overrun with $50 chickens. I don't know what they call silver-laced Wyandottes. There's all kinds of them out there, right? Before you ever even touch how much money you could potentially make working in the city. And it's not that you can't get to that point, but you need to wean yourself off of the off-farm income, get yourself established. If you're just going to quit your day job and then jump right in with both feet. And there's people that do this, but they're usually like chartered accountants or something. They're really good with numbers, right? They're really good on the business side. And, not everybody has that skill set. You got any more comments on here?
You got some more subscribers popped up. I seen that.
Where do you see that?
It just it popped up at the top.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then there's one
Plus
over
42,
here too that says
plus 42. The wind sucked. Yeah, it did. Plus 42 of the wind. That did suck. High risk, high rewards. Yeah, sometimes you do have to. I'm not a gambler. I don't know if you're a gambler. You ever play poker or anything like that?
I wouldn't go for that. What?
I like calculated risk. Right?
You got that pink one there.
Let's have a look here.
Jeremy, yeah. So 1,000 acres. Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far. More like your day job supports your farm habits. And that is often the case, right? I know, and I've got many family members involved in ag that supported their farming habits with a day job. That's a very real thing. And you know what? A good job with some flexibility can support the lifestyle. And maybe that's the option when you're looking to you're looking to quit your job and get into just farming. Maybe I just got a shitty job. Maybe you need a better job that allows me some flexibility. Maybe I get something that I can work a few less hours and start living down here a little bit instead of living up here on the high hog, and maybe not have car payments all the time. Maybe not mortgage myself to the hilt or buy campers and skidoos and side-by-sides and all this stuff that's on payments paying interest. If I just live down here a little bit, then I won't have to spend 12 hours a day in the city kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. Jeremy also made a comment here. So like he says, he farms 1,000 acres, still works out. And size won't get you there either. So, and to be fair, when I stopped working out, when I stopped working on the rigs, I didn't just think like, well, grain farming will be the thing. Like I started trucking. I trucked for like 3 years, custom hauling grain. We did a bit of custom seeding. We did custom spraying. So when my work on my own farm was done, when my own grain was hauled, that first fall, I would get up, because normally up here you can't start combining till around noon once the dew and everything burns off.
Yes, yeah.
So I'd get up early at 5 or whatever, and I'd go haul grain till noon for neighbors or whatever, and then I'd combine and then do that. So it doesn't, and that's where the whole looking over the fence, like, well, they have 900 acres, or they have 9,000 acres, they have
Yeah.
90,000 acres. Well, that doesn't just correlate to like your time and money. Well, just acres doesn't correlate to more income.
Acres equates to risk.
Right? It's just you're still the only where it starts to really work in your favor is if those acres are paid for.
Yeah.
Right. If that's totally a debt-free operation with
100%.
money in the bank, you're going to find this around that fourth and fifth generation. Somebody asked me once why you don't see many fourth generation farms, and I thought about it for a little while, and then I came up with my own theory. So the first generation broke the land.
Yeah.
They work every single day, and they have
Yeah.
really nothing else to do.
Yeah.
The second generation had a lot of production needed to be put into the land, and then they started to buy machinery. The third generation, depending on how successful the first two were, now you've walked into a land base, should be paid for, an equipment lineup should be relatively late model and probably paid for. So there's a lot more time for the curling rink and provincials and hockey and just a lot. You're a lot more productive, right, with a 60-foot drill than with a 14-foot box drill, right?
Yeah.
So the work is getting done faster, and by the time the fourth and the fifth generation comes around, it's effectively a game. The bank account's built up, the land base is there, and everything else. There's nothing that holds you to this anymore. There's nothing left to do. There's not rocks to pick and fences to build. The infrastructure exists. It's paid for. The bank account's big. In this area specifically, I don't know about the rest of Canada and Alberta, but the oil companies have came in. There's a well on almost every quarter of land, if not two. So that all exists, and to me, that's why you don't see the fifth and sixth and seventh generations up here, like you'll see in the States where you got eighth and ninth generation farmers.
What do you think happens to those folks once it gets so rich that they're sitting back and they're collecting checks? What happens to the next generation after those?
Well, the hard times, right?
I heard something the other day, and it made a lot of sense to me. Is that my grandfather had to walk to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that exact one. Yeah.
My dad had a used car. I've got a brand new vehicle. My kid's probably going to drive a Mercedes, but my grandkids are going to walk to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched that.
Right.
And I think that is the cycle.
Yeah.
Like I really do. Like once you get past the point, because there's a lot of like a sense of pride and fulfillment in your day when you're productive. If there's not, then that's another topic, right?
Yeah, if there's no pride in your work, regardless of how hard you work, if there's no pride in your work, what are you doing it for?
But at some point, it just doesn't mean as much, or if it doesn't, maybe it doesn't mean anything to you anymore, and it becomes just a job. And the one thing about agriculture is, by the time it comes to liquidate, you've effectively, you've got tremendous wealth probably.
Yeah.
Compared to your peer group if they're not involved. Someone with seven quarters of land to sell that are debt free is much better off than somebody whose parents worked retail.
Yeah.
And then they have maybe inherit a home or something. You did miss a few popped up there. There was a long one too.
Oh, was that? Did I say something controversial here?
Well, I didn't read that one.
I worked off the farm till my land base got to where I was paying and asking other people to do my work. I'm paying what I was making in custom labor bills. Yeah, and so that's where you got to hit that balance point when you're having to pay other people to do the work for you on your farm. If you're putting out $80,000 in labor a year, maybe it's time to just stay home and do the work yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the challenge with the family farm too, is, and maybe this is a subject of a future live stream is keeping your kids and your spouses and everybody else interested and engaged in the family farm.
Yeah,
because that's not something. I mean, my very last point, I touch briefly on that one, but yeah, if you're blowing your brains out with labor cost, and so you're going to work 10 hours a day just to pay somebody to come work 10 hours a day on your farm, and realizing no revenue benefit from that, well, it's probably time, right?
Well, there was, and I'm glad he made that comment. So I read an article in the Western Producer. I think it was about 5 years ago, and it was around Edmonton at Lac St. Anne County, and were highlighting this farm that was like had basically no infrastructure. Everything was leased. They didn't have bins. They used grain bags. And they were talking about how like how successful this farm was.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, this is nuts, right? Everything was rented. The land was rented. The machinery was rented. No infrastructure. Just put the crop in, sell the crop right off the combine, and get what you get, right? And it said this farm was so successful, but I know this was true because 4 years later, that same farm, it was back in the article. It didn't exist anymore. And this will go back to, like, well, a few of our points, but like unreal expectations. So there's going to be times too when you're hitting things just right, and you don't want to get caught up in the fact that, you know, this was, you know, it. What I'm trying to say is it most likely wasn't all to do with you, right? You know, I mean, those, like, 5-6 years ago, a friend of my dad's, he's a bit older than my dad. He said those years were the best years of his life in agriculture. You couldn't miss.
Yeah.
No matter what you put in the ground grew, no matter what you sprayed on it, the weeds died. It did not matter, right? And so farms that grew beyond their means, or, you know, certainly not organically, not organic crops, but they just ballooned through growth, this, right?
Yeah.
They didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because these unreal expectations of, and that would be a shocker if you start into ag and the first 3 years you get bumper crops, you know, everything works in your favor. You're gonna be sitting on a pedestal, right?
And maybe that's where we're at, is where we seed canola and all that comes up is the rocks.
Yeah, for sure.
That kind of ties into my next point is predictable surprises when we're thinking about how things can go wrong. And there's that I told you so factor. If you don't listen to your mentors, like you say, your old man's been farming for how many years?
Well, he's 69, and he farmed his whole life, you know. So I mean, you know, within reason, like he says, you know, he remembers 6 years old being very involved in, you know, throwing the chop to the pigs and things like that, right? So you know, effectively, someone like that to me has farmed their whole life, their whole entire life.
So 6.5 decades of experience and knowledge, right?
And all of it, like, it was funny. He was talking to a real estate agent there not too long ago, and the whole thread of not making any more land. And, you know, he's partially right. Like he said, in his life, he made a lot of land. He said one summer he broke 500 acres.
Yeah.
Him and his brothers. Like and I mean, so they didn't invent the land, but they proved it up.
They unlocked the country for us. Right?
So and I thought, like, wow. I mean, like all in your lifetime. You know, I remember asking him once if he ever thought he'd see a tractor drive itself, and he just shook his head. He said, "I didn't ever think I'd own one. If I ever thought that was possible, I never thought I'd own one." You know, so I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, those people you have to. You might not like what they say, but you have to listen.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I think it's very, very valuable to listen to a guy that's got 6.5 decades of like on-farm active labor experience, working with animals, working with crops, working with the weather, working with the land, right? Guys like that, and this is a saying I got off the rigs, and probably exists in the world outside of the rigs, but guys like that have probably forgotten more than you'll ever know.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, and so. And sure, we're maybe not going to like everything they have to say, and maybe they're a little bit more conservative or risk averse than what we like, right? But they got through 6.5 decades of farming by observation and making smart decisions, and surviving those ups and downs, and not just living high on the hog, right? And I remember, like, my dad used to, when I was a young man, my dad used to give me advice, and I didn't listen, right? As early 20s, you think you know everything. And I'd look at my dad, and your immediate, when somebody's giving you advice, is to look back upon their failures and be like, well, how are you so sage all of a sudden, right? When the reality is, that you really got to look at that conversation and think, man, he's literally giving me free life lessons, right? He's not only just, he's not telling me everything that I should be doing in terms of things that he succeeded at, but he's telling me all the lessons that he learned, right? Did you just take the band off?
I did. I was wondering if you were going to comment on that.
Okay,
Like,
so-
are you allowed to do that?
So what happens when, for the folks that maybe missed this in the first segment, well, how much research I've been doing on cigars here recently.
And I think we're down to 1 or 2 points, so we got time for this.
When the cigar is when the cigar is assembled, the manufacturer, the last person that puts the band on, there is a piece of adhesive that goes on that band that holds it in place. And so if you're to take that off, there's a really good chance that that adhesive is going to take a large chunk of your wrapper with it. And so thankfully you're in the final third of your cigar, because you might just find that in your bottom lip here real quick. But a little smoke, a little dip. Can't go
This
wrong,
is
right?
not just about farming. This is about cigars and scotch.
Well, and it's a cigar, and this is the thing. It's not a quick smoke. It's not like having a cigarette and a BS session with a guy, out back at the grocery store. This is, if you're going to smoke a cigar, this is in and of itself an event, right? This is going to be 90 to 120 minutes to smoke a good cigar. And this is not something that you do maybe some guys do it by themselves, but what makes it so much better is good company, good conversation, right? And every once in a while, we can tease each other about
one hell of a mess. You missed another one here that was going to be. Oh, that was Glenn again. I was wondering.
Okay. So I gotta scroll down here a little bit. Let's face it. Sometimes we'll spend more money on what we love than what we'll ever get back. And you know what? That's an absolutely true. It's an absolutely true thing. That's one premise because we're first generation farmers. We're homesteading. We're building our farm from the ground up. And I know that not only am I going to give my wage income, that from off-farm income, to the farm, I'm also going to sell half my retirement to the development of the farm to get my kids to a place where they're established in agriculture, because that to me is very, very important. So what else did we miss here? But it's the life we chose. Absolutely, right? It's all about the decisions we make. And then Glenn said, many of us appreciate what you do. So yeah, absolutely. So next point I have, reacting instead of acting. So common mistake with new farmers, homesteaders, and even sometimes this happens with established farmers. But and this largely goes in terms of not having the previous generations of the mentors behind them, the multi-generational farms, is just reacting to things as it happens, right? It doesn't come from being able to bounce ideas off of somebody and make an informed decision. It's basically, I'm presented with a problem and I have to make a decision on my own, and that's no fault of their own. When you don't know what you don't know, you have to make you have to move and you have to make a decision, and you have to learn some hard lessons. But if you're dealing with an issue after it's already happened, it's going to play out considerably different than dealing with an issue that you were prepared for, right? If you know something's coming, like you the other day, you had issues with your water well. You had a switch on the shelf, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
We did, yeah.
Right. And so, keep a pressure switch, keep a sump pump, keep critical spares on the shelf. Now, you don't want to keep like $1 million worth of inventory, but you got to think, if this thing shits the bed on a Sunday, what is that going to mean to harvest? What is that going to mean to my ability to flush the toilet? What is that going to mean to things like water and wastewater on whether it's just a small off-grid homestead or whether it's a large commercial farm? You lose the ability to process water and wastewater, you are dead in the water, right? Literally, no pun intended.
Jeremy, that's the biggest problem, is trying to keep family involved, in my experience. Anyhow, my dad is third generation farmer, pretty much farmed off his father's success. When I wanted to farm, he had no interest in expanding, so I did my own thing. So I am fourth generation or first. Jeremy actually brings up a pretty good point, and this is where I go with, I'm either second or third, and I don't even know how you calculate this. So my dad did not end up with the home quarter. He had to branch out on his own.
Oh, okay.
and that's why we are where we at. The original homestead is 3 miles further past our farm.
Yeah.
His brother ended up with that. So he did get 1 quarter that he bought off his dad, and then everything else he bought himself. So someone was asking me once, how do you define generation? And I would say it's consecutive home quarter. Whoever keeps that.
Whoever keeps the home quarter.
So yeah, then you can be, so like my brother, or so my uncle's kids would be the 3rd generation.
So you might be a 4th or 5th generation farmer, but you might be a 1st or 2nd generation farm.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Because you see that a lot where people. Well, I guess you don't know how to say it, and I would say whoever gets the home quarter gets to claim that, I guess, to be the next generation. Those that had to leave, and you'll find that in big families. Not everybody can have a home quarter, right?
No,
who has to go out and who has to start over, effectively have a new home quarter, becomes a new generation
the king of the castle.
of farming, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jeremy, I definitely can relate to that, and that's a point of pride for people that do that. Someone like Jeremy. Yeah, you don't get to just. You shouldn't live in the shadow of, well, I'm a 5th generation farmer or whatever. Like if you had to actually grub out this living, you're on your own, then I think you get that award, right?
Absolutely.
That badge of honor that you started this out on your own. So yeah, you can be a 3rd generation farmer with a 1st generation land base, or
you can get the farm family award in your driveway.
Yeah.
It could be a thing, right? Yeah, reacting instead of acting. That's my final point on that one. Is so if you don't have the knowledge base or the multi-generational experience base behind you, I would recommend, if you need something for the farm, go online. It doesn't have to be go online. Go to the store and ask for the troubleshooting manual. Right? Figure out everything that can go wrong with that thing before you make that purchase, or before you buy some dumb shit, to be honest, right? Like, if you're going to buy something and the troubleshooting guide is 16 pages long, maybe that's not for you, right? Now, if you're very mechanically inclined like yourself, maybe that's not a problem. But
I asked Jeremy.
Yeah, well,
Jeremy is a mechanic.
So that's the thing, right? You got a guy in your pocket, right? And that's fantastic, right? So maybe you don't need 5 generations if you've got a heavy duty mechanic in your pocket, right? But that leads into one of the final points is predictable surprise is not understanding service life and amortization. So the two go hand in hand, right? How long is it going to last, and how am I going to replace it when it's done, right? So if I get a sweet deal on, I'm going to pick on you because you're right here in front of me, but you just got a telehandler and you got a pretty reasonable deal on it, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah,
I would
and
say.
we're not going to talk numbers, but you got a reasonable deal on it, and so there's going to come a time when that thing is done. It's reached the end of its service life, and so when that's done, in many cases, the folks that buy things like that are not prepared. If they're dependent on that item, they're not prepared to replace that item when the time comes that it's scrap metal, right? And so if you're not ready to drop $80,000 to $100,000 on a piece of equipment or a piece of infrastructure, then what are you going to do, right? So nothing lasts forever. So there's going to be a lot of critical infrastructure. I mean, we just mentioned water, wastewater, that all. I mean, I had a bad experience with that when I sold my acreage in Valley View. I sold the acreage, and the new owners, they had plumbing issues. They tried the feminine hygiene products went down into the septic system, and that's a recipe for disaster, right? So they say, well, where's the septic tank? And I was like, oh, it's kind of out in the bush there somewhere. And they went in with a track hoe and tried to find the septic tank. Well, they found it, and then they collapsed it in on itself. And then they tried to come after me, and it's like, well, no, like that's not how this works, right? you go using a track hoe as a line locator, that's on you, right? So, but yeah, so if you're not ready to maintain a piece of equipment, or to reach its end of service life, something you need to consider is amortization. So what's the life expectancy of that item? So if it's 20 years and it's going to cost me $80,000, I need to be setting aside, for the next 20 years, I need to have $80,000 plus 50%, because that's probably what inflation is going to take that product to, so that when I need to replace it, that I have that money set aside to pay for it, or at least a very good sizable chunk of it, right? And that's why I think this thing's gone out again. That's why I think it's really important with things like with your water well, right? If your water well legitimately goes down, it's not a pressure switch, it's not just a pump and you can pull it out and you're $500, you're back online kind of thing. If you're looking at having to drill a new well, I mean, you're $15,000 to $20,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You put a full septic system in. When we installed ours, I mean, it didn't cost us this, but if we were to get somebody to actually come in and do the whole thing for us, it was going to be around $25,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
Right. So understand how to maintain it and understand how to pay for it if it's reached the end of its service life.
Absolutely. I see Chad just hopped on. You got a few that you missed, and I'm going to do the cups one more time because there's a few people now watching. So, Chad, tell your wife happy birthday. Glad that you did get to tune in at all. The other thing, too, for those, if there's any new people that don't know about these cups, Stan and I had these made. A friend of my wife makes these. These are sublimation on here, so they're dishwasher safe. There's a Kirkfell Farm one, and there's a Bloom Enterprises one. We are going to give these away. We're going to go back after the live stream, and we're going to see who's all commented, who's all participated. We're going to throw all those names in a hat. We're going to draw them, and then we're going to give these cups away. We got a few sets made because we're planning on doing these live streams, as we can. And we do appreciate everybody. If you're in here commenting, if you're sharing the stream, if you're liking it, any of that stuff, that's all. I mean, why not, right? I'm not going to sit back and say it doesn't matter. It's nice. It's nice to know that people are watching and participating. So those are going to be up for. I'm glad I joined in then. Yeah. You just made her. You just made her in.
And that's one thing. Like we've said in previous live streams too, that I mean, we generally know that we're speaking to like-minded individuals in many cases. But you probably all know folks that need to hear this message that don't know who we are, that don't know about our channels, that maybe do struggle with some of the things that we're talking about. And you know what? Give them a link. Send them a link. Share the video. Recommend us to the friends and neighbors. Expand the community. That's how we all get better. That's how we'll have deeper discussions with you folks, and we'll get new ideas for new live streams. But my final one, and there's been a lot of discussion that's kind of danced around this throughout the evening. I'm kind of really down to the heel on this cigar here.
We're going to get into Justin's. I brought Justin's one he gave us.
I'm burning the band here.
I took it off. I'm way past the band.
I'm scared to take that off in case it just
smoking glue.
Completely unraveled.
That's what I'm smoking right now.
Everybody needs a hobby. So
Colombian glue.
Honduran glue.
Honduran glue.
Yeah, I don't know what Don Tomas thinks about this, but anyways, yeah. So here's the elephant in the room, and this is why. So when I put another question out on our community page in terms of what kind of videos do people want to see, and I forget what all it was, but one of them was this one specifically: predictable surprises, how to prevent small farms from failing, how to generate revenue on your homestead, and the last one was how to convince your spouse to get goats. Right now, we're going to talk about all of that. We've talked about 3/4 of that now, and I just want to get into the spouse thing because that's largely, I mean, that's the anchor, that's the rock that helps a lot of. I mean, there's definitely getting the kids involved for sure. That has an impact, but that can be sometimes 10, 15 years before that really gets off the ground and grows some legs, right? But the buy-in from the spouse is a critical piece, right? So say, you know what, you have a dream, you want to have 3 goats, 5 chickens, a donkey, a beehive, and this massive garden so that you can pickle some carrots at the end of every year, kind of thing. Which I was surprised. I thought you'd like pickled carrots. But...
Oh, I do. I just don't want them with this.
Okay, well.
Oh no, we pickle a mad amount of carrots. You know, the other thing I do. Do you still have carrots in the bag that I asked you for like 3 months ago?
No, we actually all the carrots went. I got two bags of carrots that didn't keep very well. I threw them to the chickens. My wife is big into Tupperware. She has these stay fresh breathable containers.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some in the house that are still good, but the bagged ones, the bags limit their shelf life.
I missed my
you
window.
missed the window. Well, you didn't miss your window. That was me. Really, that was my fault. I didn't get after it quick enough. But anyway, so yeah. So you got this dream, right? You want to have all this fantastic stuff. You want to have the white picket fence, 17 different breeds of chicken. But your spouse is, well, maybe it comes off as indifference, right? Or I mean, they're just happy with what
Mm-hmm.
they're already got in life, and they're looking at your dream and they're thinking, all I see in that is sweat and labor and sore backs and knee injuries and
a few curse words, say
forking hay to a horse at 5:15 in the morning when it's 40 below and the wind is blowing out of the east and it's just like biting him. Yeah, this is the dream I live every day, right? So they're looking at a long, laborious trail ahead, right? And so if you're going to take your dream to become reality, it means planning, it means cooperation, and it means a ton of work. And this is the case even if you have an existing farming operation. I mean, you know this, you are in a very well-established farm and how much work that you and your wife have to put in, right? So if you want to expand your farming operation to have, suddenly have chickens, or, I mean, you got pigs this year, right?
We did, yeah.
And you get chickens and pigs.
Slowly growing.
You're right. And so then that requires more input. Somebody has to go out there every day and feed those darn things. And for as much as you think there's somewhat of a symbiotic relationship, there's still inputs required for the pigs. There's still independent inputs required for the chickens and the steers and all that stuff, right? So even if your business plan is solid, you have to talk to your spouse about what all of those inputs mean in terms of how it affects your time together, what that's going to impact your work-life balance, your finances, all of that stuff, right? Otherwise, you're going to fall victim to what I call the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule is where you basically expend 80% of all your effort on feeding these goddamn goats, and all that's left of you at the end of the day is 20% to give to your relationship, right? And if that happens, if you find yourself falling into the 80-20 rule in terms of you're not giving what you need to your relationship, phone the real estate agent, right? And this is like a life sage advice here. Take this one seriously. If you're taking your farm and you're homesteading, your hobby farm, whatever it is, to a point where it is breaking your marriage or you're not giving what you need to your kids, you need to downsize. Because if you don't phone the real estate agent, you're going to phone a divorce lawyer.
Yeah.
That's my mic drop moment right there. And I gotta check because I know there was some comments that came in. Glenn says, I'm no farmer, but I can't imagine the investment sacrifices modern farmers must deal with yearly. How would a new young couple even start? Unreal investment. So this is, Carmen and I, we started out 2017. We bought this place having came from agricultural families, but having no asset base ourselves, right? We lived in town. We both had jobs. We bought the farm. We had to create a business plan, right? And that's why we're having these discussions, is based on the lessons we've learned. Both have full-time jobs, and you've got to put in an incredible amount of work. And if you're not aligned in terms of, when I say the 80-20 rule, in terms of what's my dream and what's your dream, if you're not both rowing the boat in the same direction, it's going to be a real challenge, right? But if you are both rowing the boat in the same direction, you can do absolutely amazing things. What else you got?
Yeah, well, I had my last one here, and like when I was looking through it, and this isn't a
Are we talking about this one here?
We're going to hit this one right now.
That's gold. That's gold.
But it's not an operational thing, right? And it's kind of where you're going. So if you're not getting this from your spouse, right? And yeah, hold on, everybody. You've got to look after your mental health. And I was trying to think of that video you made. You said something about if you don't take time for your mental health, you'll be taken. What did you say? I remembered it till right now. I was just thinking of it. But you had that great line. So
if you don't make time for your mental health, you will have to take time for it, more essentially.
Yeah, it was. I'm going to go back and find that video because that was a gold comment, and I really think this is important. And I mean, even the friendship that you and I have drawn up from
that's what it was. Yeah, if you don't take time for your mental health, you're going to have to make time for your mental illness.
Exactly. So even the friendship that you and I draw up just from a bag of chicken feed one year to now doing live streams, and I mean I YouTube and everything, right? So if you don't surround yourself with some like-minded people to sound off, and this, I never really thought of that. Oh, the old boys, they go for coffee, right? I never really thought of if there was a more underlying reason why that happened. So when all these old boys are going for coffee, you're surrounding yourself with some like-minded people, so you can work through some stuff and you can figure some things out. Now you can have all sorts of friends, but if your friends aren't involved in ag at all, if they're not involved in anything that you're doing, they're not going to understand, right? So you what did I have in here? Like ag is it's always not as rewarding as it's made out to be, and that's no matter what stage you're at in the game. If you got 10 acres or 10,000, it's people look over the fence and they think, well, if only I had that. They don't think if only I had that, I'd have those problems, right? So and when you're involving and surrounding yourself with people, you don't need to surround yourself with people who have the same acres, who have the same mindset, just people that are interested in the same things, in the same goal, and can help you out a little bit. So with your farm, you're most likely going to find it's going to be eating off the table. It's not a get rich quick thing from your feed bills if you have animals, your repair bills on your equipment, your maintenance of your infrastructure, all this stuff, building up your livestock herds, and the most prohibitive, like Glenn was saying, how do you start? The most prohibitive thing is just securing some land. You're going to encounter a lot of times where you feel like your work isn't appreciated, it's not understood, and it's not valued because you're just hemorrhaging money, and when you're in it, you can't see your way out of it. So if you don't find somebody that can talk to you about it and gives a shit, that's the thing. They don't have to be in the same situation, but that gives a shit, that ultimately might be what sinks you, even if everything else that we've talked about tonight doesn't. That could be what finally takes you down, because we can only take so much. That's my mic drop.
Did you ever hear the story about the two mice that fell into a bucket of cream?
I may have. You can refresh.
Two mice fall into a bucket of cream, and they tread as best as they can for
That's out.
10 minutes. 10 minutes, one mouse gives up, sinks to the bottom, drowns in the cream. And the other mouse treads and he treads and he treads until he turns that butter, turns it into butter, essentially. And when it turns into butter, then he just gets up and walks right out of that bucket. Okay? And that to me is the difference in community when it comes to being able to support, on the mental health side of farming. Is it's really hard to look at everything you got to do and summon the strength to get up every day and put in that kind of commitment. And it's really, really easy to just give up and sink to the bottom. But little things like this that we're doing, the community that we engage with, the people that come and purchase things from our farms, or even the folks that we purchase stuff from for our farms. They form a very, very important community and a support structure. And so, maybe there are certain things that, not everything your spouse is going to be able to give you in terms of your mental well-being. That's just a jigsaw puzzle with multiple pieces in it. But it's an interesting thing that, I mean, if without community, if you had to do everything yourself, you become like the mouse that just kind of fell to the bottom of the bucket. I've heard other stories of folks that got locked in like meat coolers, and they were found dead like 6 hours later. They didn't run out of air. They didn't have hypothermia. They weren't froze to death, but they just lost hope, and that's what killed them, right? And so having that support structure, that mental health piece, is critical. And I run into lots of folks like this that ask these questions. I don't have any buy-in from my family. My spouse isn't supportive of this. My parents aren't supportive of this. What should I do? And the community at large is very reassuring and very supportive of them, and that's great, because for some people that's all they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that significant other, or they don't have a family with a 4 or 5 generation agricultural background to cheer them on, kind of thing, and give them advice. And so if you find yourself being that person where, like, somebody's looking to you for advice, and you can offer, no matter how small you think it is, if you can give them something, maybe that's all they need to keep going that day, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes we undervalue what we're able to actually give, right?
And Chad said, without a buy-in from the family, I wouldn't be where we are at. For sure. I still believe anyone can start farming. You just can't have it all at once. Takes years and commitment, for sure. So yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you had said, Chad, you were going to watch this all on Sunday. Stan and I did cover a lot of that. We talked about from our specific areas. Like, I was born into an established farm. Stan actually did start his own from the ground up. So it is possible. And for what we compiled, things that I've noticed that kind of have affected me, things that affected Stan as starting out. We did cover quite a bit of that. So yeah, this can be done. It's certainly not easy. I don't believe it ever was. I know my dad was having this conversation with another old timer at the farm last week or whatever. He was picking up some molasses, and that old boy said, "I think it might be harder now." And like my dad said, it never was easy. And the thing with ag is it's never going to be easy, and that's why if you don't have that labor of love and that real drive to want to do this, that's and maybe this mental health and this stuff, maybe that should have been the most important.
And maybe that's got to be the subject of a future one, because I mean, we could probably talk for hours on that one. But
oh, for sure, I think we could.
I know when we got into this venture of
maybe
ours,
it's something that's not talked about enough. Yeah, for sure.
It totally is. So, and I'll go off on a tangent if you'll allow me with this one. So when we first looked at this place where we're at here right now, it was December or January of 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, right? And I was looking at that coming out of town, thinking, I'm looking at the number of just the land alone, and that the land alone costs more than my house in Lawton Town. And I'm thinking that financially, as a guy, I've got that protector provider mindset. Like, how am I going to face this insurmountable number? And the only way I know how to do this is through work and hard labor. And then in on this quarter land, we were signing papers. It took some time, right? But we were signing papers, and the 5th of March, I found out that my dad passed away, and in the UK. And so I went to the UK. I left my wife here in Canada and her family to pack up her entire household and put it all basically in storage in a sea can. And when we came back, we lived in our RV out just outside the shop. The shop wasn't even built yet. And so it was lonely. My wife was working a 4-on 4-off shift on the ambulance in Beaver Lodge. And so for 4 days, I was here in the RV by myself, no power, and I was having to haul water from the dugout, which made for some really interesting showers. And no internet, so basically I was reading my collection of books here, and I had a gnome, and I talked to my gnome every day. And then I got this bright idea one time when I was scrolling through the buy and sell that I was going to buy these sheep. And for as strange as it is, it was agriculture that was actually helped me through the mental health challenge that I was dealing with through, my whole world being turned upside down, plus the loss of my dad, who was at that point in time my entire sounding board. Right, he was the guy that I went to for everything. And suddenly I've now made the largest decision of my life with the biggest impact, potentially financially and lifestyle wise. And I'm I'm one step above living down by the river in a van, right? and wonder where we're going to go with this. And yeah, it was a trip to Fairview to pick up 5 sheep, and that's why still to this day I call them my therapy sheep, because it was having that having animals here that grounded me. It gave me that sense of responsibility. It gave me that sense of purpose, and it drew me into the love of the land that I don't think I could have got anywhere else. And that's what got me through probably one of the most difficult times in my life. That was before I had an appreciation for fine scotch.
For fine scotches
and cigars, yeah.
and 10,000-year-old water.
I just wanna see if I missed anybody here.
I was gonna get back to
So Wheat King says having a solid guy to talk to and kind of rely on your toughest times totally helps, even when coffee turns to something by 11. Coffee turns to
you missed it. Yours is
coffee
really
turns to
happening.
beer by 11 a.m. Yeah, and Glenn says your wife needs to know how to brew up a good cup of tea. My wife actually is pretty good at making tea. Every once in a while, she makes it a little too weak or a little too milky, but I think I hit a gold mine there with her. I hit the jackpot. She's pretty good. And then Tamborora Station. I'm not sure if that's Kent or Martien, but hello everyone. Late start for me.
You missed the cups then.
In-depth topics tonight.
You go over the cups.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so the cups.
One more time.
Originally,
We got a few more here.
Originally, Robin was good enough to make these cups, the cups that he had custom made. You can see they got our farm logos on them, and there was some interest. Like, oh man, those are right uptown, which they are. They're fantastic. And so Robin had these ones made by a friend of your wife's, right?
Yeah.
So you can see this Bloom Enterprises logo. I'll show it over here too. The logo is actually sublimated right into the glass. So these ones here, we hand wash these because this is a vinyl decal on the glass, and so we don't want that to get damaged. But these ones here are actually dishwasher safe. And so if you drop in a comment or ask a question or engage in the video in some way, shape, or form,
The Kirkfell farm also.
we're going to go back after the live stream. We're going to tally up everybody that left a comment, and we're going to figure out how to do a draw. But we'll draw for a set of cups, and then whoever wins will reach out to you some way through YouTube.
We'll figure that out.
We'll figure that piece out. But yeah, somebody that attended tonight's live stream is going to take home a set of custom whiskey glasses with Bloom Family Farm and Kirkfell Farm. So that's a little bit of appreciation to you guys for viewing and adding some good questions, good discussion with us here this evening. So.
And then we had 3 more here. Jeremy says, biggest problem with most farmers is they don't learn how to stop farming in the off time. Once you can stop for a part of the day, your mental health and your marriage will be much better. I do agree with that. Something I had to learn too when I got pretty involved in the whole feed thing. People might laugh at that and think it's stupid, but that ballooned into something more than I ever thought would happen. We actually sell feed now as far into the Yukon and down to Vancouver Island. So we're have quite a few people rely on us keeping the grain, keeping it in condition, making the feed for them, and being open when they're coming through. That put quite a bit of pressure that I wasn't expecting. I didn't think this was going to balloon into what it did. Chad says nothing a guy enjoys is ever easy. It's all in attitude. Mental health is a big deal. Everyone
100%.
needs a way to get away for a bit. It refreshes you for sure. Absolutely. That's kind of one of the reasons why Stan and I decided we'd do these live streams. It gives both of us a break. We can just, get it. And that's the whole reason behind the Scotch and cigars. Neither one of us is a drinker, and neither one of us smokes. However,
as funny as that is,
it was just like what's the manliest thing that we can just sit down and chat. And then we thought, well, we're both on YouTube anyways. Let's involve the rest of our friends. And then Ty says, probably said LOL, but COVID hasn't helped. Definitely hasn't helped.
No.
Neither Stan and I actually talk too much about that in our YouTube. I think everybody's drunk on that, bored on that. But you're right. It did not do any good for anybody. At all. I don't know what the hell the right answer is to it. The chaos that's happening in the last few weeks I don't know where, but you're right. It's a real problem.
Yeah. And so you've said many times that your job has insulated you from that.
Oh, for sure.
That experience. My own job has had me, I would say, fully immersed in everything COVID, and to feel that kind of pressure, what does that look like? Well, I would say, that can definitely come and eat your lunch and mess with your head a little bit. And there's no greater thing to unwind than just to come home, feed the chickens, simple things, right? They say small things amuse small minds, but it is those simple, things that you can do in a day. I come out, I bring Charlotte out for my nearly 3-year-old daughter. We go out, we feed the animals, and some days she enjoys it, some days she doesn't. I take some pleasure in some small things, and shut the news off, and just focus on the things you can control, and maybe the world's not such a bad place after all.
Absolutely.
How much we got left in the heel here? We probably got enough for one more live stream, eh?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe even 2.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, they make more every day.
So it takes 12 years, though.
Yeah, but someone 12 years ago was thinking, I know what those guys are going to want in 2022. So we'll get that.
That's right.
We'll get that for sure.
Yeah. Well, good stuff.
I think that's awesome. What are we at? We're at 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Did we break the record yet?
No, we didn't. Last time was a little over 2 hours and 20 minutes. What does yours say?
This is 135 minutes. So that would be 2 hours and 15.
So, but I think I've hammered through mine. You
I got yours. I got everything. So what are we going to do with all of these? Because I'm sure the folks at home wonder what happens to all this stuff.
Well, I don't know. You're compiling it. You can put that in your stack. Oh, one more there too.
I think Kent just left us a comment.
We'll leave the last few minutes here. Don't be shy. File in, because you're not going to get your name in the draw unless you do throw some questions in. Stan's thing is going crazy with the comments.
Yeah. So I'm just going to check this last one here. So Kent said, farming's a lifestyle that not a lot of people can experience anymore. It's tough to make a go of it. Yeah, absolutely. And then Glenn said, time well spent in your tractor sound booth, Stan. Yeah. So every once in a while when the weather is foul, which is just about every day here, I gotta crawl into the cab of the tractor and tell people about my feelings. So
your new recording studio.
Yeah, I mean that's what you got. But now that we've got the mezzanine set up, I like
it up here.
I think this might be a thing. It's kind of nice and cozy. It provides a good atmosphere, good discussion.
Yeah.
And so the notes, I don't know where it's going to go. I started keeping notes in a book I got over here, and we got all of these. I think one day we could compile all these notes and make a book. I think we could write a book.
Well, I mean, we may as well. Like we got the will to do it.
So I guess you heard it here first. I don't know how many years it's going to take us to get there. How many live streams it's going to take there. If we compile all these notes, what do you think? Would you go down to the PV Mart? Would you buy it? Would you buy this book? Would you?
Somebody would buy it.
Somebody would buy it. Yeah.
I'm sure there's at least 8 people here that better buy it.
I mean, there's tons of books there on raising chickens and growing gardens and stuff, but this is real. I would say, what we would call wisdom. I don't know. It's as close to wisdom as you can get from the bottom of whiskey glass, but this is from the hard stuff, right? So I mean, we're trying. we're trying to, you know, put out good content, engage some people in some good conversation, and we really appreciate you guys' input throughout the whole live stream. So it's good stuff.
Absolutely. So there's a few thank yous. Glenn said thanks. Chad, the rest of these guys, yeah, you're very much welcome. We thank you guys also for watching, for sure, for commenting, and for participating. Awesome to have livestock. Ty says farm kids can get out of the house, not stuck playing on the TV, stuck in the house. Absolutely. That's something that both Stan and I we involve our kids in as much as possible, and we do think that's important as well. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But we got one last one from Tambora Station, or Tamborora, and I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks everybody.
It's great you guys are putting out some content for people to watch. The kids will love it later on in life, as well as it's a video diary. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons we do this is, I mean, for our perspective, for sure, we got distant family that aren't able to, you know, be here and see everything. And so this is one tool that we use to be able to share that with them. And
yeah, I was surprised my dad's relatives in Germany watched this. And
yeah.
I was just like, I mean, whatever. I mean, so
that's awesome.
You do
got
it,
a global
for that
global
right?
outreach. Right?
Well, I mean, you never. I guess they never cared up until now because there was no way to know, and now they know what's going on daily on the farm. So
yeah,
but
some folks in the old country that could probably, if they knew how to work the internet.
Well, you have some though. I see commenting all the time.
No, there's. I mean, like actual like family members in the oak. Aside from my mother, like I got aunts and uncles there that, you know, they're well into their 70s.
Oh yes.
So what's the internet?
Exactly, for sure. And with the time we've been having trying to get a system figured out here with computers and phones and stuff, I don't blame them for not knowing how. You know, we don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean,
so
well, I think we're getting better. I mean, our struggles, we're still having the same struggles, but it's taken us less time to overcome them at the beginning of every video, right? So
that's true.
Yeah, so and that's the other thing. We appreciate everybody's patience in the first 4 to 5 minutes of the live stream, right? But
squinting, eh? What is that?
Yeah. What? Need the big glasses or something. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll see you guys all on the next one. We'll be doing.
Cheers.
Keep up on Stan's community page, my community page. We're going to put some questions out there. We're always looking for ideas for topics, things like that. Let us know what you want to talk about, and we will be happy to oblige.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks so much.